Thank you, everyone, for watching my podcast today, The Neil Coutts Show. And today I have an awesome guy by the name of Laban Ditchburn. Laban Ditchburn is an accountability coach who keeps people on point and helps them achieve their goals and stuff like that. So but without further ado, thank you very much for coming on to the show today, Laban.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Neil.
You're welcome.
It's a real pleasure.
Okay. So, Laban, what's news in the world of Laban Ditchburn at the moment first?
Well, as this is recorded in early May 2020, we're obviously still in some lockdown. There's a few things going on in the world, but this has been a very nice blessing in disguise for me. And I've been able to experiment with a few different things, some biohacking and some physical achievement stuff that I've been thinking about for quite some time. And the apparent lack of interruption has been really great for me achieving a lot of that stuff. So with regards to, say, what I did today, for example, I'm now 12 days into a zero carb, meat, water only protocol. And there's a number of reasons why I'm doing that. I've been largely animal protein only based for nearly 2 years now. But I ran a half marathon this morning.
Wow.
Fasted, and no nutrition or water on the run this morning, and set a new personal best for me, which I was pretty chuffed about. And been feeling pretty good for it. So
how far did you run? Like, do you measure yourself in distance?
Yeah, so a half marathon's half of a 42.2k marathon. So it's 21.1, and I think I ran another 100 meters just to make sure.
Oh.
And that it wasn't a flat surface. It was around the Botanical Gardens here in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
And going up Anderson Street. So for anyone that knows the Botanical Gardens, you'll know that Anderson Street really well. And I've got a good heart rate monitor and a good GPS watch as well. So it's pretty accurate. It's pretty good. And scooted around there in a nice clip. So it was a great start to the day.
Nice. So tell me a bit about yourself. What was life growing up? I believe you grew up in Melbourne. Is that right, or correct me wrong?
I've been living here for nearly 20 years, but I'm actually from New Zealand and moved here when I was 21 to Melbourne. I am one of 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and there's the older brother's a half-brother, the younger brother's a full-blooded brother, and I've got 2 younger half-sisters from a different mother. So there's a bit of a Brady Bunch kind of scenario. Grew up in Christchurch in beautiful South Island of New Zealand, also known as the Shaky Isle, they call it these days, because of all the seismic activity they've had. And I grew up in a working class type of environment, I suppose. The child of divorce, very commonplace where I grew up, and really got to the end of my school, which I failed 5th form on 2 occasions, and even got 2 exact same scores 2 years in a row with the same curriculum in science and economics, which goes to show how much attention I was actually paying, and really was quite directionless when I left school. Wrote my father's car off 2 weeks later when I was drunk, and thankfully no one was injured, and ended up washing dishes at the Christchurch Convention Centre for a week. And the head chef came up to me and after about a week and said, would you like to train as an apprentice chef? And I said, anything's better than washing these dishes. And so I spent the next 18 months working at sort of one of the premier convention centres in New Zealand, and where I sort of plied my trade as a chef. or a trainee chef at least, and learned some really amazing life skills, but knew that that wasn't my long-term desire, and sort of fell into sales and moved to Wellington for a little bit. Got an opportunity to go work in Thailand when I was just 20, which was a hell of an experience. And at that time, my father... Sorry?
What made it a bit of an experience? What made it unique?
Well, at 20, like being an expat was not really something that you would do until you were a bit older and had a bit more experience. And I worked for a moving company over there. And the moving companies for years in Thailand had been colluding and price fixing. And they were able to get much higher rates than normal because they were all, going in and agreeing particular rates and sharing the business.
Okay.
So there's this fantastic cartel happening. And about 2 months before I arrived, that cartel collapsed. And it made it very challenging. But the really fascinating thing about the whole experience, was that the bribe system that is, prolific all through most of the world, a lot of places in the world in particular, they used to incorporate the bribe money in the quote customer to avoid paying stamp duty and custom duty.
Right.
And I was working 85, 90 hours a week. And during my partying days, the only time I had off, I was just obliterating myself with alcohol. And, it was a really wonderful life experience. And I lasted about 6 months and I was just, burnt out effectively. And because I wasn't looking after myself, and moved back to New Zealand at the end of my contract. And at that time, my father's second divorce was dissolving. And so he uprooted himself and my youngest siblings over to Melbourne. And
nice.
He said, son, come to Melbourne. It's the land of milk and honey. And he spent his last $800 on a flight to get me over there, 23rd of December 2001.
Oh, wow. So just coming back on the what you were saying before about being part of a Brady Bunch family, obviously with in some way a bit of a broken family, mum here, dad there. What were some of the challenges with yourself growing up, especially in New Zealand?
Well, broken's a really great way to describe it. My older brother came from a father that didn't want him, was adopted by my father, and then in a pursuit to try and reconnect with his birth father, ended up polarising the relationship he had with my father. So the younger siblings, the challenges early on were my parents both came from incredibly dysfunctional backgrounds themselves, not too dissimilar to what a lot of people have gone through. And unfortunately, they did the best they could with the tools they had available, but, they didn't have the benefit of seeking help through the internet or, whatever it might be. And there was custody battles, that we spent time at the Chomley Children's Home, when mum couldn't cope. She dropped us off at this orphanage, really. And, my father got wind of it and drove down there and kidnapped us away and rescued us and some really fascinating things in it. And there's some really great things that came out of it in terms of, becoming very resourceful and, learning to fend for myself. But there's also a lot of negative legacy stuff that I've been working through, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, that didn't really serve me very well as an adult.
Okay. So yeah, you've had some challenges, I guess, moving around and stuff like that. So what inspired you to become a accountability coach? Is that right? Accountability coach?
Yeah, accountability coach. It's just it's a term that I like for myself. And I think it sort of sums up what I'm trying to achieve pretty well. And to answer your question, I hit my own rock bottoms because there was a few of them, and spent an awfully long time resolving and healing and working through a lot of those legacy issues. And when you've spent that much time on self-development and you are, you're working so hard on yourself, there's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows too. And what I want to try and impart upon people that are open to receiving guidance is basically a shortcut. I can help people mitigate a lot of the risk and gently sort of tap them. It's like I compare what I like to do for people is to be those, at the bowling alley, you got the covers or the inflatable, cushions that block the ball going into the gutter. And so because you're going to bounce.
So is that people, how can I say, people when they're growing up into their 20s, it takes them a bit of time to leave the nest type of thing, and they get handheld by their parents. And when they decide to move out of home, how can I say, they have their own challenges and they're not always successful. Is that right?
Well, the trouble is with going through any kind of trauma, Neil, is that there is, as a child, I'm referring to here, there's coping mechanisms that we are engineered or have evolved to use in order for us to not have mental breakdowns and die. Now, we are hardwired to survive the best way we can. The issue with a lot of this stuff, Neil, is that if it's left unresolved in your childhood, it tends to manifest itself in your adulthood in largely negative ways. And a lot of those things are escapism, struggling with addiction, struggling managing interpersonal and sexual relationships. The list goes on. And so this is why I'm so passionate about it.
Okay. So you're saying, coming from your own experiences, you want to impart the knowledge that you've gained to help succeed in life, rather than disconnecting from life and doing things that are, I can't say, well, not the best for you, if you know what I mean. Is that right?
Exactly. And when I look back at my youth, I used to whittle away days and months playing video games when I was visiting my father, because that was the only place I had a Sega Master System, or eventually a PlayStation and whatever. And I certainly loved, a lot of full-on movies, a lot of and then as I got into my early teens, and I got my hands on alcohol and access to drugs and pornography and philandering and promiscuity, that type of thing, they became the next level of escapism. And the beautiful thing about dealing with a lot of these demons is that when you start confronting a lot of your escapism, you start the healing process, and you no longer have the desire to escape in the same way. And what happens as a result, in my own experience at least, is that time that I would spend, totally useless, wasted on nothing, is now being turned into massive amounts of productivity. And in the last 4 years, in the last 2 years, especially since I got my health sorted, my productivity levels have gone through the roof. And I've achieved more, I think, in the last 2 years than I have in the previous 38 years I've been on the goddamn planet.
Okay, yeah. That's awesome, we all want to be successful in life. So what do you do as an accountability coach? What do you do with your clients?
So the main premise is that the person that's seeking coaching has to be fully engaged, and they have to really want to change. And we've touched on this. So I will get the individual to send me a list, and they'll write it down, whether it be handwritten or typed, of the things that they desperately want to change, and the things that they would like to change, and the things that they want to start doing and stop doing. And I will literally just go through whatever the list. And it might, some clients, for example, have had 16, 17 items on that list. And they might be like, stop smoking, I want to be a better partner. I want to be better to my kids. I want to be better with my money. I want to grow my business. And I'm not able to nail all those things, but I'll look at the things that I've been able to do myself and have had success with myself. And then I will say, here's what I did. So there's none of this do as I say, not as I do bullshit. And I do my damnedest to lead by example. And I will never get anyone that I'm working with to do something that either I haven't done or I wouldn't be prepared to do myself.
Fair enough. I get that. So, what types of people do you work with? I'm sure you've come across many different walks of life. Could you give me some examples?
So the list of personalities, age, demographics, sex, it's so wide and varied because the message seems to connect with people that have gone through similar experiences. So, for example, there's like a 30-year-old male who lives in regional New South Wales. There's like a 60-year-old female. There's a 55-year-old Pacific Island female. There's young men in the cricket club that I'm involved with, as young as 16, 17, that not necessarily are receiving, specific coaching, but are sort of receiving guidance or mentorship. You got to be careful not to overstep any boundaries there, but people that are curious to know, because I am very open with my own experiences and I will own everything that I've done. And I think when you behave like that, you allow other people to open up about their own experiences. And so people tend to share a lot with me. So, it might be a privileged 16-year-old man who's at the cricket club who comes from a lot of wealth, very successful parents, and yet his sibling, for example, I'm just making something up here. This isn't a real life example, but a sibling might be going through some major mental health issues, and them as an individual are really struggling with the whole thing. And this trauma stuff affects all demographics. Doesn't matter how much money you got. People still go through the same shit, just with various levels.
So what you're saying is basically people are reluctant to achieve their goals because it's much easier to crawl back in their hole or, disconnect because of their traumas is what you're saying, that past traumas can have a big effect on your future in you achieving goals. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the specific fear of failure that people, or fear of success rather, that people experience is probably one of the main things that I notice with myself. I really had to relearn the art of succeeding because there was such a legacy of failure in my family. And I'm not trying to blight anyone, but there was not much achievement or not much accomplishment because they were all dealing with their own levels of trauma and codependency and escapism, right? So I think once you start getting your shit together and you start loving who you are, and you can only do that, through working through a lot of your demons and confronting all the stuff head on. Once you start respecting and loving who you are, it's when you really start thinking, maybe I should do something with my life. Maybe I should do that passion project. Maybe I should, be a better individual. Maybe I shouldn't be such a shit bloke.
What do you
know what I mean?
What do you mean by loving yourself? Like, I take care of myself. I get dressed, I do my hair, have a shave. I try to look good. Is that loving myself, or is there a bit more to it?
No, not in this context. And what I'm about to say, I would deem to be received as controversial at times, but I honestly don't care because I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives. I certainly don't go around berating people with my ideals. I'll open discussion lines, but I truly feel that once you get to a point where you truly love and respect and care about who you are as an individual, then and only then are you capable of forming proper functional relationships with other people that will allow them to be loved by you and vice versa. And, making sure that your hair's done and all that other stuff, that's just, basic grooming. And that's a part of self-respect, in my opinion, and a very important one, I think. But, for me, being overweight, being a drunk, taking drugs, spreading myself way too thin, trying to people please and seek validation didn't serve anybody well, especially me. And you've heard this saying 1,000 times, you can't help anyone else if the plane's going down if you haven't put on your oxygen mask first. You just can't. And the same applies in this principle, in my opinion. And when that realization where I'm the one that looks after my life, I'm the one that determines my future, that's a really empowering thought process for me.
So I hate to use this word, but so what you're saying is if you're not loving yourself if you're acting like a loser, and a loser is just a really neglectful, negative type of person. Is that right? Who doesn't want to do anything with themselves, but just bake. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think we've got to be careful, though. Like, I really, truly feel that the reason people behave like that is because they don't understand this stuff. They do not understand the negative connotations, the negative impact, and the negative byproduct of growing up in a less than nurturing environment. And barely anyone that I've ever spoken to can say to me, hand on heart, Laban, I had the best childhood ever, the best. And what I mean by that, there's boundaries, there's ground rules, there's discipline, the things that you need in your own life in order to formulate a much more successful life. And it's easy for me to stand here and talk to you about this stuff because I've far from nailed it. There's still aspects of my life that I'm working on as we speak. But fuck me, Neil, I'm far more advanced or self-actualized than I was this time 4 years ago. I can tell you that. Yeah, and that's directly reflected by the people in my life now. I choose to surround myself with people that lift me up. And that's one of the negative side effects of being down on yourself, being less than your potential, is that, birds of a feather flock together and you end up hanging around other people that are in the same boat. And it doesn't serve you well. Do you know what I mean?
That. Yeah, I get that. It's like you are who you hang out with. If you're going to hang out with people that are not really doing a lot of stuff for themselves, then you're less likely to do a lot of stuff for yourself. But if you're hanging around people that are trying to achieve goals, you're going to be having the attitude of wanting to achieve goals yourself. Is that right?
Exactly right. And there's science around the fact that you become like the 5 people you spend the most time around. There's absolutely no denying it. Why do you think elite athletes end up sort of progressing up, and then they end up playing for their country or whatever, and they are surrounded by the best of the best, and as a result, more often than not, they get better. Same with everything that you do. Same with everything.
So, basically, you keep good people around you, and like you said yourself, you subtracted all the negative people around you, and you're now achieving a lot of the stuff you've been wanting to achieve in your life. Is that right?
I do, and I'm really proud of that fact. There's the goals that I set and reset myself when I achieve them are grandiose, very, very bold. But if I'd set those goals with people that were in my life previously, and this isn't a slight on them either. I'm not here to badmouth or bag anyone, but it's just the next chapter of evolution. Yeah. And it's important to realise that it's nothing necessarily personal. And people say, oh, but he's your brother, or he's your sister, or she's your mum. Like that for me doesn't mean anything. Not in the same context.
So
if someone, if someone is in your life, and it's a sibling or a family member that does not serve you well, and what I mean by that is that they are, they probably have a victim mentality. The world is always ending, and there's always chaos and drama around them. If that doesn't serve you well as an individual, you are well within your rights to cut that person out of your life and set very clear ground rules saying, this doesn't work for me. I don't feel great when you and I are together. And if you would like to be involved in my life, these are the motherfucking ground rules. And maybe you don't need to say it like that necessarily. You can do it at a time when things aren't heated, and that's really important to when you're having these discussions with people, that you are doing it in a calm manner, and you are never accusatory, or you're never blaming them. You're simply saying, look, this is making me feel pretty shit, and I'm not enjoying this whole process.
Yeah, because that's one of
the. So what can we do about it?
That's one of the challenges in life is, disconnecting or cutting off people that you feel aren't helping your cause, and some people turn around and go, then you're not a real friend to them, If you can just cut them off because, you don't believe they're good enough to be hanging out with you, but then you believe in yourself that you need good people around you, and having people that are negatively impacting you, I get what you're saying. You have to cut them off, and that is one of the challenges in life, because you might have grown up with a friend. I'm sure you've got a friend here, one or two, that you hung out with while in your teenage years, going out drinking, taking drugs and stuff like that. But you've had to cut them off. Have you copped much backlash yourself when doing that, cutting people off?
Yeah, do you know what, Neil? In the early days, especially when I quit drinking, and it'll be 4 years on August 26th this year since I had my very last drop. And as God is my witness, I will never drink again in that same way. I have, and it took a bit of adjustment. And what seems to happen is that it triggers people's own insecurities. And I know this because I used to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you would chastise people for not wanting a drink. You know what I mean? Like, come on, it's a few, what are you doing? Peer pressure. So when I told everyone I wasn't drinking, when I've been surrounded by friends who, have been great friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And again, this is not to blight or to give anyone grief, or saying they're bad people, because they're not. They're good people, but we're just on different levels.
Yeah.
It did take some adjustment. It takes some balls, Neil. It takes fucking courage. You know what? It's the best thing I've ever done. It's this whole transformation thing's allowed me to start flourishing into the person that I dreamed that I wanted to be when I was young. And I've been quashing that feeling for a long time. And now I've tossed off the motherfucking shackles, and I can really, be the best person I can be and leave the planet in a better place than it was when I got here. That's the whole point of this for me. And the satisfaction that I derive from that, how good I feel now that I'm healthy and fit and strong, I'm able to empower other people, and I'm able to help other people. And if I'm doing well in life, then the financial rewards that come with that, then I can choose to help people financially when I want. I can choose to do what I want for work.
Yeah.
And this is the beautiful thing about, transformative process, is that you start figuring out all this stuff. And so for that, the whole process, like as painful as all of that was, I'd do it all again. I'd do it 100 times over if I had to. It's totally worth it. Every time.
Okay, so this sort of attitude, do you get your clients to adopt this sort of attitude towards their peers?
Look, let's be very clear. When people are coming to me for help, they want to know what I've done.
Yeah.
So I simply talk them through the tools the tricks and tips that I've had good success with and help them avoid some of the pitfalls that I had, because everyone's got to go through their own journey. And it's not to me to tell them who they should cut out of their life. They've got to get to their own realization of what they want to do.
So you won't actually tell them to cut people off, but you expect them to do it on their own merit by working it out themselves. You're not going to tell them directly to do this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is none of my business. It is none of my business what they do. And if they choose to follow some, all, or none of the information I pass on, it's entirely up to them.
So
Thankfully, most people get a few good tidbits out of it here and there and start seeing either small, medium, or sometimes large improvements in their life, at least short term.
So you basically give them your philosophies, and they take what they want out of it and put it, how can I say, take it on in their life. Your philosophies, they'll take it on board. Is that what happens basically?
Look, I wouldn't use philosophy. There's certainly some philosophies that I do have that if they ask me my opinion, I'll tell them. But it's the education side of things. I didn't get to this point without a lot of help from a lot of people. And what I mean by that is through countless authors, people doing podcasts, like just the number. I've read probably 250 books in the last 4 years. And like decent sized books and thousands of hours of podcasting and just audible stuff, whatever it might be, to learn and understand about everything that I've, had to get through. And so if you're trying to impart that kind of commitment to someone who's like, I just want to change my life, I just want to make things a little bit better, you've got to pick and choose the ones that you think are going to, add the most amount of value. And all you want to do, Neil, is you just really want to trigger people to start their own journey, their own healing process. And that's the whole concept behind, become your own superhero. It's like, rather than looking up to someone for inspiration, be your own inspiration.
Yeah, no, I get that. So what are some of the challenges that you face with your clients when you are imparting your knowledge onto them?
Well, the same as dealing with any human being, I suppose. You've got, thankfully most people are very open with what's going on in their lives, and they volunteer a lot of information. And, knowledge is power. And, I had a 14-year career in recruitment, so I've learned some really handy skills in terms of qualifying and talking to people. But, human beings, it's in recruitment, like it's the only product that changes its mind. Everything else, like is a solid object or an actual service, changing your mind is one of the most challenging things about recruitment. It's the same with coaching as well. People have got their own things going in their lives, and it's important when we're coaching and when we are working with people not to set unrealistic expectations for themselves, certainly not to lambast them when they, don't do the homework or whatever it might be. It's more of a case to sort of ascertain, why is the motivation not there? How come they didn't do that fairly basic request that they committed to doing? How come they didn't show up on time? And let me know if they were going to be late. Why? And then you just start digging, and quite often you find that, the person that you're working with has had a horrendous day and their mother-in-law just passed away. Or, like they're going through a miscarriage, the partner's going through a miscarriage, or, some major shit's going on in their life. And you've got to be gentle with that, but know when to give people a prod and pick your moments. And you can only do that by building trust and credibility by being a man of action and your words and doing what you say you're going to do, which I think is the same thing.
So, like, what comes to mind for me is the SMART goal system. Was it Sizable, measurable,
measurable,
achievable,
achievable, yeah.
Realistic and time, I think it is. Not 100% sure, but I'm familiar with the system. So what you're saying is people are either A, are not using, the properties of the SMART goal system, and they're, overestimating and stuff like that. Or people just aren't coming to the table because they're just having crappy life instances. Is that right? These are the sort of things that basically create the challenges.
There's one other thing.
Yeah.
One other thing, and there's probably more, but the other major thing is they don't want it bad enough. They don't want it bad enough. And until you get to a point in your own existence where you are in enough pain and discomfort where you go, I'm done with this life, which is what I hit and experienced and am very grateful for, then and only then, Neil, is when you start to do something about it.
So it's basically how desperate they are, how badly they want to be able to achieve their goals. That is when they're ready to, drop the hat and say, all right, it's time to do this. And so you get a lot of people that are, in some words, half-assed about wanting to achieve these goals, and they're not really doing it. But yeah, so people, coming back to the SMART system, specific was the yes bit, not sizable. They don't really know what they want, do they? And do you find that a challenge, when they come to you? Because they're like, oh, I just want to improve myself. And you're like, okay, write down on a list for me of 10 or more things that you want to achieve. But then when they come to you, they're just like, oh, but I had this going on today. I had that happen. I broke my leg. My cat jumped up a tree.
No, it's not like that so much. It's not like that so much, Neil. It's a case of when they give me a list, and if they're keen to progress from the next stage, that's normally part of like an initial consultation. And if they are keen to progress ahead, then if they're saying to me, I want to improve my life, then we start digging down. I go, what do you want to improve? And they go, I don't know. Well, what in your life needs to be better? And they go, oh, my relationship with my wife's no good. Why? What's wrong? We don't really communicate very well. We're only probably together because of the kids. Yada, yada, yada. And then you start digging down. Well, how long has it been like that for? About 3 months. And, let's say they've been together for 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, what happened in the last 3 months? Oh, like I've put on some weight, and I lost my job, and I haven't really done anything about it. And then you can start identifying. You go, well, okay, how much weight have you put on? And he's like, I don't know, 20 kilos. And he's sitting at home, not looking for work. And you go, well, okay, there's maybe an indicator that there's a good reason to piss off your other half if you are, not working and not making any effort to do anything about it, and you're not looking after yourself, you're not respecting yourself, you're not loving yourself. Oh, okay, yeah, I understand that. So what do you want to do about it? Well, I want to lose the weight. Great, then we can start. I want to get a job. I don't know how to get a job. Okay, great, I can help with that. And then we start writing down small little incremental goals that they need to tick off. And then all of a sudden, fast forward 6 months, how's things with the missus? Oh, fantastic. I got a great job, bringing home flowers once a week or whatever. And, we're communicating more. I'm doing more around the house. Got more energy because I managed to lose the weight. And, my libido's gone up because I'm not a fat fucker anymore, and we're able to make love 3 times a week, whereas we're doing it once a month. And you see how it all sort of flows on, Neil?
Yeah. So
it's all intertwined, no?
So basically what you do is you find out what they want to achieve, and then you give them little activities to do to achieve each goal. Is that right?
Well, it just depends. Depends on what's really important. Someone throws a big list of 20 urgent things that they want to work on, something that took me 4, 5, 6 years to work through, and they want to do it in 3 weeks, then it's, you've got to prioritize and work out what's most important.
Yeah, but not everything happens overnight, but everything happens in baby steps, right?
Nothing happens overnight apart from the moon.
Yeah, I get that.
In my opinion, with this stuff, this is the marathon. This is the ultra marathon.
Yeah.
But the important thing is to remember you can't compare yourself to anyone else apart from the person you were the day previously. Okay. And then by writing stuff down and journaling, taking little video diaries, that type of thing, you can reference very quickly how much progression you've had, within pretty short periods of time, especially when it comes to things like weight loss and fitness and, just getting off drugs and alcohol, that type of stuff.
So you've got a bunch of clients, right? How much of them, how much of them are actually doing as you say, and how much of it is it in a percentage way? Is like 50% of them actually do as I say, or do you are these people? You give them these challenges. Are they doing them? Or do they?
No, just to be clear, there's no telling them what to do.
Yeah.
There's always asking them whether they're happy to commit to this challenge or this goal, this idea. And the success rate thus far, Neil, is almost 100%.
Oh, awesome.
Because like I said to you, the importance of dealing with qualified people that really want to change. Because if you try and convince someone to do something, even though you know it's going to be good for them, guess what? They won't do it. Because guess what? I never did it either.
Yeah, I get
that. Don't tell me what to do. Who the fuck are you? Do you know what I mean? Like you've got to want the help. That's the key. And you can't deal with people that aren't ready. Everyone's going their own journey. They've got to get to a point where they want to do it bad enough.
Well, I get it. The world has a lot of naysayers out there. Or is it naysayers? It's like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And they come to you and go, Laban, I want to do this. And you're like, all right, and you ask them, do you want to do this? And they're like, yeah, I want to do this. And you go like, what do you want to do? You ask them, do you want to do this? And they say, yeah. And then you come back to them next week and they're like, you go, did you do it? You said you wanted to do it. Did you do this activity? And they're just like, nah, I didn't do it. I had, Do
you want to know how to mitigate that risk, Neil?
Pardon?
You want to know how to mitigate that risk? You get money from them. They invest in themselves, and then you don't give a fuck whether they do it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, but people are motivated when they start investing in themselves. And that's why when you charge a premium for your service, people respect because they've invested a lot of time and a lot of money into themselves.
Well, they work hard for the money and they don't want to be just throwing it away. They want to put it to a good cause, But I guess, I get what you're saying. As soon as they pay that top dollar, they don't want it to go to waste. So they're going to make sure they get off their backsides and do something because otherwise they're just throwing money down the well. Is that right? You reckon? You agree?
Well, you got to remember, Neil, through all the years of doing recruitment, I've gotten really bloody good at qualifying people's suitability for jobs and for life. And I even used it when I was dating before I met my now wonderful partner. We've been together for a year and a half. Yeah. And I went on 150 first dates through Bumble and Tinder. And they were largely good experiences because I'd qualified the person that I was meeting. And it sounds arrogant, but it's a very common skill in recruitment. And, I can read people pretty well and I'll call shit out if I need to see how motivated people are. Because if you're not motivated, why would I waste my time trying to help you? Why would I care?
Yeah. So you get good at judging personalities, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely you do. It's a learned skill. All of the stuff can be learned. Everything in life can be learned.
Okay, so out of all your clients, what is it that they generally want to achieve with you?
Contentment. Contentment in life. Yeah.
They just want to be happy with themselves and basically doing everything they want to be doing. Is that right?
Yeah, well, most people have achieved some or one area of success. You know, they might have, a really successful business and they might have lots of money, but they might be miserable because they can't hold down a relationship and they can't manage discipline with their diet and they can't manage discipline with exercise. So, what point is there in having all this financial success if you're fucking miserable? So that, and some people on the surface seem very well adjusted. And then when they open up with what's going on, it's a game changer. Like the amount of abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual that has happened in so many people's lives. I'm not just talking about coaching clients, just talking about people that I engage with in general. It's prolific. And the interesting thing about trauma, Neil, is that one of the studies they did one of the ACEs studies they did in America, they did these EMRI scans on these children's brains. They'd been subject to explosions in a war-torn country. I think it might have been Syria.
Yeah.
And the effect of the explosion, the trauma in the child's brain had a physical damaging effect on a section of the brain. Yeah. And they did these EMRI scans on another test group, that had been sexually abused as children.
Yeah.
And the really fascinating thing was that the effect on the brain was almost the same. Same part of the brain, same trauma. So, your experience of trauma might vary dramatically to someone else who went through something worse, but you can't diminish your own experience and you can't diminish anyone else's. Yeah. And when you start to understand that, then you can go, all right, how can I heal from this?
So basically parts of the brain switch off after experiencing these traumas, and you're basically trying to wake up these areas in the brain so they start firing nice and bright. Because I think that's what you see in these MRI scans, is that where the active parts of the brain are functioning or firing off. So when you experience traumas, certain areas shut off and you're just trying to reactivate them. Is that right?
Well, look, I'm not a neuroscientist, although I could probably pretend to be one if I needed to be. But what I'm trying to do is I believe that with the right nutrition and the right physical application and mental application towards healing, I firmly believe that 99.9% of the population can heal from this trauma. And I'll throw something that happened to me a couple of years ago, Neil, to give you an idea. When I quit drinking and then I changed my diet around and started having some success with weight loss, I started running. Yeah. And I started out very, very slowly and slowly built up to a point where I was running to work. And it was about 5 kilometres door to door. And I started out doing one way, 1 day a week. And then I'd go, one way twice a week, and slowly built up and built up. And I got to a point where I was getting pretty fit. Yeah. And I had a few emotional breakthroughs. One in particular where I let go of some pretty angry hate towards my mum, for example, and resentment for the childhood that I had. And then, as I said to you, the understanding that what mum and dad did was the best they could with the tools available. And after I apologised to my mother, and I sent it via a text message on Mother's Day in 2018, when I hit send on that, I burst into the most guttural release of tears and emotion that I've ever experienced in my life. And later that week, I went for my very first big run, which was about 24 kilometres. And I'd never run that far in my life. The furthest I'd ever run was about, done one run of 11 Ks. And then the next Sunday, I did 27 Ks. And during these runs, about halfway through, I burst into tears.
Yeah.
And what I firmly believe happened from a biological and a physiological point of view, and this is totally anecdotal only, N equals 1, right?
Yeah.
Is that the trauma that I had stored somewhere in my body was being released either through, because a lot of toxins store in fat. So I don't know, this is all very woo-woo, but it might be very possible that the trauma is stored in subcutaneous fat or visceral fat that doesn't move for a few years, and it's 20 years old, the fat, I don't know, I'm only guessing. And then as I burnt through that, particularly because I was doing this low-carb protocol, the emotion would release, because it doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore. I don't cry anymore. And then they became tears of joy.
But yeah, the way I look at it is trauma equals stress. Stress equals toxins. And if you can let go of the baggage, which is, I guess, the stress, you'll have less toxins in your body. But to get over the psychological side of the trauma and reliving the memories on a regular basis or thinking about it all the time is probably the hardest part of the process. But once you work out how to let go of that, the other two things just basically disappear, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think there's a direct correlation between getting yourself physically in a position where you are fit and strong and healthy, because we've evolved to be fit, strong and healthy over a millennia, thousands of millions of years. And the current state of lifestyle issues and medical issues that we are experiencing that have only really developed in the last couple of 100 years, and in particular the last 100 years, with a lot of the metabolic disorder, things that never really existed in the past. There seems to be a direct correlation between being fit and healthy and your body's natural ability to be able to detoxify that stuff and come back from trauma. But you've got to...
I remember Sadhguru saying, he's a Swami, that, in the past, like you say, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, life was a lot harder than what it is now. And we have it much more easier in life now. But the thing is that because we have it so easy, and we have all these other things like, junk food, fast food, we play video games now, we don't go out and run around, we don't chase after our food, or we don't go picking them off trees, we just go to the shop. We are in a far worse state than what we were 200 years ago. So I get what you're saying, like with the running, you've got to do some exercise, you've got to keep moving, because we're not, as human beings or mammals, we're not designed to sit still. We're designed to move around and, go catch our food. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, my true belief is that nutrition starts with nutrition. And when I started getting my diet right and have been experimenting with what would appear to be pretty outlandish things, my want and desire to get off my ass to go and exercise and to move my body went through the roof. And I think that has a direct link to eating well. And people are like, yeah, no shit. But I'm talking about properly dialing in to your own intuition, food-wise.
Yeah.
And when you, I think there's a really beautiful sweet spot when you figure out what it is that your body's supposed to eat. And human beings have evolved eating animal protein for all our lives, and when you start trying to deviate away from that and you start fucking with evolution and your body starts going, no, thank you, and it rewards you with depression and anxiety and lethargy, you know, autoimmune disease, all these other things. When you start nailing this whole process, you get out of bed and because you sleep well, so you recover well, you want to do more things. And that's what I was saying to you before, that my last 2 years have easily been the most productive years in all I'm 40 in June, so the last 37.9 years. And it's directly related to the energy that propels me forward. And as I dial in more and more and more to what I'm doing with this nutrition stuff, it's got me now to a point where I'm training like an elite level athlete. I'm running like an elite level athlete. I'm, you know, as I said, 40 in June, I'm still able to compete playing Premier cricket. I'm still able to throw my body around and it thanks me with endorphins and oxytocin. Like, you nail that part and your ability to handle external stress and environment goes through the roof.
So eating is the major factor in this whole, I guess, with you working with your clients, as well as if you're eating the right foods, drinking the right drinks, putting the right ingredients into your body, everything else should just fall into place because you should be able to manage yourself and go out and achieve those things that you want to achieve, right?
Exactly right, Neil. Exactly right. And that's the first place that we typically start as well.
So with your clients, you'd have a look at their diet and what they're consuming first. I guess that's at the top of the list.
First thing I look at.
Okay, I guess. So what I wanted to know is what is it that brings people to you instead of them doing like yourself and picking up a book, reading Tony Robbins or listening to T. Harv Eker, or, you know what I mean, like these authors that you have out there. What brings us, you know, what is it that you have that separates you from the rest of them?
Well, I think the main thing that I wanted when I was seeking mentorship or coaching, you know, whether it be I had access to a life coach, I had access to a psychologist for a year and a half through the Gamblers Helpline for free. You know, like I've got mentors in my life that help me with the speaking side of things and the coaching side of things. I've got cricket coaches. Like, I can read all the books I want on how to be a better person, but unless I'm able to understand it well enough or interpret that in a way that allows me to go, oh yeah, get it. Like, this is the thing with university, right? A lot of these, and I'm doing mentorship with some Melbourne University economics and marketing students. Signed up for it a while back, and I've got 3 students at the moment that I'm working with, and you know, the questions they ask me are about, you know, what's it like in the workplace, because none of them have had paid employment previously. And I'm like, well, like, I've worked at about 20 different companies in my life across sales, cooking, you know, recruitment, relocations, you know, Chinese restaurants when I was young. Like, that they all vary. And you know, I said to one of them yesterday that what the workplace is going to look like when you graduate from university is probably what we should be looking at now. It's a totally different thing. So they want someone who can maybe articulate things for them in a way that they can understand. And I think reading is part of the process. You know, like I said, I've read a lot of books, and for years I didn't read shit. And when you get other people's perspective on things and start taking on different philosophies and different ideas, it allows you to grow and develop and really self-actualize in a way that I can't even really quantify to this point.
Okay. So you get all these people, you know, they've got someone there to talk to, someone that they can relate to, or should I say you can relate to them, you know, or like you said, articulate, you know, you're able to explain it to them. What happens when people actually fail to follow instructions. You've given them your heart, you've given them your time, and they're just not coming to the table. What do you do in those instances with your clients that fail to follow through with instructions?
Well, like I said, Neil, I've got a pretty good strike rate, and the reason why people aren't doing it is because it's not the most important thing to them, and I want to try and understand how I can be a better leader, a better coach, and a better guide.
Yeah.
So I reflect on those moments, but I'm not sure why there's such a big focus on that. Like I said, the people that I work with are qualified to a point where they're engaged. They want help. They are desperate for help in some cases.
So, you did say you didn't say you had a 100% strike rate. You've got 99. So there is a gap there. I'm just more curious to know, because I'm really trying to get to the crux of what you do, and not everyone is always going to do as you say. So, I don't mean to write you off or just say, try to look at the negative side of it. But do you just cut them off? Do you give them warnings? Do you just keep sending them more tasks, or still keep?
Well, I'll give you the tip, Neil. I'll give you the tip. It hasn't happened yet, but if it got to a point where they are repeatedly taking the piss, I will cut them off, but not without fair warning.
Yeah.
And like I said, 99%, that's just being, I don't want to say 100% and sound like an idiot.
Yeah, okay.
Because nothing is perfect. So you can pick holes in it all you like, Neil. But you're better off just talking to them and see what they think of it. When you're dropping $6,000 on coaching, you're serious about it.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, man, if I was giving you $6,000 a year, what is it, $6,000 a year, or is it?
Look, it really depends. It depends on how much help people want.
Yeah.
I set realistic timelines regarding getting this stuff done. When you sit down with a life coach, normally you do it for a period of at least 3 to 6 months. If you're working with a career coach, usually it's this stuff, depending on the level of help that people want and efforts they want to go through. And, I'm still only relatively new to this, Neil. So it'll get to a point where the price goes up.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spread myself too thin. And I don't mean to sound arrogant.
Yeah.
But I get really good results, and it happens a lot faster than most people. And when you start, if you go, what's it worth for me to change my life and do all these things that I want to achieve in the next 2 years? What is that worth to me? And it's priceless. In every single occasion, it is priceless. It is priceless to take control of discipline, to quit drinking, to quit gambling, to quit partying, like whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you start to be able to see that fulfillment.
Well, as you become more, you tend to become more sought after. You only have so many hours in your day, and there's only so much you can do in that day, and, so unfortunately, that's why you see these other people, I think like the Tony Robbins out there, he only really takes people for no less than $1 million if you want to have a one-on-one session, because he just doesn't have the time, That's why he does all the books and stuff like that. And I'm sure later on down the track, as you become more sought after, you will also look at those avenues so you can continue to help people. But have you ever come across anyone that's just got money to throw away?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that specifically.
Like,
I don't
got that much money.
Comes from.
Someone that's got that much money someone that's got that much money that they're happy to give it to you and then don't show up.
Well, I'll call you when it happens, Neil, but it hasn't happened.
I look forward to it, actually. I really do. 'Cause I'm sure you'd have some stories or yeah, some stories, or they'd have some excuses, some really good excuses. Why not? But yeah, just getting back to this whole this interview. So, what is it that you enjoy about this profession as an accountability coach?
Well, I love seeing people just do better for themselves. And, you're never, ever too old to learn, and you're never too young to teach.
Yeah.
And I get more out of it than the person that I'm working with, usually.
Yeah.
You learn things about yourself. You learn how to do things better for the next time. It's certainly a win-win for me. There's a huge fulfillment component when someone tells you that their life has improved because of the input that you're able to have. And who wouldn't want that?
No, I get that. I guess that's why teachers like to become teachers, I guess, because you're sharing knowledge, and for the teacher themselves, it makes them feel good in the heart. And especially when someone comes back to you in the future, and they go, because of you, I am where I am now. It's almost like having a medal or a trophy, but not physically having one. But yeah, would you agree with me on that one?
Yeah, well, it's if you are inherently a decent person and not a sociopath, anytime anyone says to you that, the impact that you've had has been a positive one is going to be great. Because it's the opposite of when someone says to you, you fucked my life up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get
no one wants to hear that. Not even the baddest person on the planet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Common sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I get that. So you enjoy the rewards for you yourself is seeing people basically achieve their goals, and that's what you live for.
Yeah, amongst other things. I mean, it's an incredibly fulfilling, vocation.
Yeah. Oh well, you did say as well. You want, is it that you do public speaking, or is it that you want to get into public speaking?
No, keynote speaking is probably my number one passion. Okay. And with what's happening at the moment, not a lot of that stuff is happening in person. Yeah. But, when you talk about spreading yourself too thin with coaching clients, speaking is a wonderful way of getting your point across to multiple people in one sitting. And then, if they want to explore it further from there, then fantastic. So, I love lots of the parts of coaching, many things, but public speaking, being live, like you've rehearsed, you've honed and practiced, and it's your opportunity to perform. Really, you're an actor.
Yeah.
But the content that you're using and talking about is really helpful.
So
hopefully, really helpful.
Do you do your speaking around the same stuff that you teach with your accountability profession?
Yeah, it's all intertwined, I suppose. Like occasionally I'll do some private stuff with like a collaboration with other organisations. There's one that I've been working with recently called Sugar by Half, which is run by Professor Peter Bruckner, who's a sports medicine doctor. And he basically wants to, rather than trying to complicate all of the nutritional guidelines and give people stuff too much information so that they'll then, just go, forget it, just talk about reducing sugar by half. And so a lot of that stuff is in a corporate environment to blue and white collar workers. And so you're delivering the content from the Sugar by Half, but you are telling it using your own stories. And sugar addiction was something that I battled with my whole life, and it's only a relatively recent thing that I've been able to really, truly knock on the head.
Yeah. So basically, so you're saying that you pair up with organisations to deliver their content, but share your life experiences along the way as you deliver their content. Is that right? Is that what you do?
You would, depending on what the purpose of the presentation is, you will utilise, like the message of Sugar by Half, but you will help deliver it by using your own stories.
Yeah. Okay. So, just to tie back, I'm not sure if this actually relates with your work, but does list building and goal setting actually work, or is there a bit more to it when people want to achieve their goals?
Does it work? Yes, it works. Absolutely, it works. And is there more to it? Absolutely, there is. Absolutely, there is. Goal setting without application means nothing, but it is an integral part of any kind of success.
So basically, it does work. What more is there to it, though?
Well, how long is a piece of string?
I get that, but
there's many different components to it.
Does it require discipline? Or obviously, it requires some form of discipline. How do you achieve that discipline? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Like anything in life worth doing, Neil, it requires a form of discipline.
Yeah. So
because no discipline means you do half-assed efforts or you don't do it at all. So, but you've got to get to the point of what your why is. You've got to get to an understanding about what's the reason behind doing this. And that's what we do. We try and get to the point, especially, of why am I doing this? Why am I day 12 of excluding everything out of my diet, apart from steak, sausages, lamb, black coffee, and water? Because I want to get lean so I can run faster to achieve some of these running goals I've got. I want to look the part when it comes to coaching and practicing what I preach. I want to be in the best physical representation of myself when I'm delivering these keynotes, so that when I'm talking about conquering sugar, I'm not some fat bastard who has it. Because credibility just goes out the window.
So when you're doing these gigs, basically, obviously it's an image. It's like a PT. You can't have. What's the point of becoming a personal trainer if you're a fat person? Do you know what I mean? You're not. What do you? How can you sell the product that you're trying to sell if you don't look the product itself? I get that, and but do you actually, when you do your accountability stuff, do you try to work out how the people are wired, and do you try to work out how they're wired? Do you have any expertise in that?
Well, I kind of feel like I might have already answered this, Neil, but I think what you're asking is, there's an intuition that comes with life experience and going through similar shit to other people that you will know and understand. And that's all I use. I have always had an interest in people. I've always struck up complete random conversations with complete strangers, and I do it on a daily basis. Even during lockdown, I find excuses to talk to random people and talk to them about their lives and ask them lots of questions because I'm genuinely interested in people. I'm good at it.
Like you were saying before, I remember that, you're good at judging characters. So when you get a client, you basically just try to judge their character. Then from that, in your experience, you're like, okay, they're wired this way. So now we need to rewire them to work that way. And this is what we're going to do.
I think you're overcomplicating it, Neil. I don't know that you can go into that kind of detail, and I'm not like, Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind with all these diagrams and graphs all over the bloody wall. It's an instinctual gut feel that you get someone initially, and then you either affirm that or deny that by your experience with them throughout that process. And you don't get it right all the time.
Because I remember, like, I did once when I was in my early 20s, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and they said there was like 16 different types of personalities out there. Everyone falls into one box, and then once you work that out, obviously you do a multiple choice question. Once that's done, you have an idea of the person's character, and then from that you can work out what to do from there. And I'm just wondering, are you a superstar in that field, or you're just drawing from your personal experiences?
No, well, I've done lots of. I've done Myers-Briggs. I've done an Enneagram report. I've done Facet 5. I've done a bunch of them. Yeah. Recruitment, in particular, are big fans of doing them when you work for them. I think there's certainly some. They can be very helpful in getting an understanding of someone that maybe you haven't met. But there's no substitution for a one-on-one, face-to-face interaction and getting to know and understand someone. And I'm not an expert in reading Facet 5 or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
I am an expert in understanding and reading people.
Yeah.
And I don't have a degree in it, but I'd challenge any behavioural psychologist or anyone in that field with my ability to see how well I'd go against someone who's got a doctorate in that.
That'd be interesting. I've always had a personal interest in, like yourself, in different people's characteristics, like to read body language and stuff like that. It really helps you to judge and get through life, or judge people and get through life, and make sure you're not mixing with the wrong people and stuff like that. But I think it's one of those. It's a great skill to have, to be honest, because you probably get yourself out of a lot of sticky situations as well. Now, just the last question I had was basically, without your help, what would be some tips you could recommend people if they want to improve themselves and basically achieve their goals, and hold themselves accountable?
Well, there's a number of things you can do, Neil. I almost feel like this is an interview for you to use some of the stuff for yourself, which you're more than welcome. Look, the first things first is let's assume you've reached a point in your life where you are going, this is not the direction that I hoped my life was going to end up in.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do about it? And how willing to change am I? How much pain am I in? And the first thing you can do is reach out to someone for help.
Yeah.
Because if you are in a place and people get themselves in all kinds of trouble and end up, committing suicide over what would be deemed as fairly innocuous type events, a marriage breakup, bankruptcy, like family breaking apart or whatever. And when I say innocuous, it's, obviously these things are major traumatic events, but it's, you can't control anything apart from how you think and how you react. And, by reaching out to people for help, which I have done many, many times, and becoming very comfortable with the art of asking for help. And there's a line you've got to work out. You can't be someone who takes all the time. You can't. That is the characteristics of lots of people that I've had dealings with over my life. And take, and it's like the emotional vampire. They just drain you, right? So you've got to find a balance of reciprocal agreement. And you've got to, the way that I approach life now, Neil, is that I try and add value into every person that I meet's life.
Yeah.
Don't do it all the time. Don't get an opportunity to do it all the time. But something as innocuous as, meeting someone in the shop and you're standing next to them in an aisle looking at a can of, I don't know, Spam.
Yeah.
And they say to you, "Good morning." And I would enthusiastically say, "Good morning. How are you?"
Yeah.
And they might say, "Oh, I'm doing really great, thank you. And how about yourself?" And I might say something like, "Do you know what?" And they'll go, "What?" And I'll say, "I'm blessed. I'm actually blessed." And they'll say, "Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Why are you blessed?" And you go, "Because I woke up this morning with air in my lungs, food in my belly, clothes on my back, and a roof over my head. And for that, I am very grateful." And that response, rather than the, "Yeah, I'm good, how are you?" Yeah, like that mundane, boring bullshit, response that's got no real thought or motivation or passion behind it, will change that person's day immediately.
Yeah.
And they'll skip off, not always, but they'll mainly skip off into the sunset, and you will have uplifted that individual.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to starting, you've got to know when to reach out for help for people that ideally will help and not tell you what to do. And I had an incident, at the start of this year when my former business wasn't working, went bust. And I needed some financial help. It's an area of my life that's the next hurdle for me to work on, right? And I asked people that I thought were friends and I'm not saying they're not friends because they didn't lend me the money, but I thought they were rock solid people that I could rely upon. And it turns out they weren't. And the person that was able to help me in the end was someone I didn't even think about initially, but ended up being a guardian angel. And so it's now my life's purpose, in addition to paying the money back, is to try and pump as much value into this person as I can. And there'll be things that I'm really good at that this person has no clue about, and vice versa. So do you see where I'm coming from? It's you can't take, and you've got to add value in what you do.
Like I know, like you should never judge a book by its cover. I remember my dad telling me one day that, because my dad used to be a sales engineer and he used to sell $1 million machinery. And one day a customer came into the store, basically dressed in rags, apparently smelled like crap, carried a garbage bag with him. No one wanted to serve him. And when the customer finally found the machine that he wanted, he eventually got someone to assist him. In that garbage bag was a whole bunch of $100 bills rolled up. It was scrunched up, and apparently it was a farmer or something like that. So you really can't judge a book by its cover. You got to take everyone for face value and how they interact with you. You know what I mean? Not just the way they look and the image they're trying to portray. Because some people might seem like the coolest person in the world, but are the most crappiest person, and someone that's a bit moody and stuff like that. When you reach out for them, they're all arms out there to help you. So but what I could gather is basically is just having a mentor there to help you along the way. When you're down in the poop, basically, that's someone that can shed a little bit of light on you and pick you back up, because tying back to earlier, you are who you hang out with. If you hang out with miserable people, you're going to feel miserable yourself. So you want to have a good quality person there. I guess, you want someone that has a bit of a proven track record, basically, though, someone that's is an expert in achieving goals. So therefore, you can get solid tips out of them, so you're doing the right thing and get feedback as you need it along the way. Someone that you trust, because, you want, if you don't trust that person, you're less likely to open up fully with them. You might hold back some of the truth to it, and by holding back some of the truth, you're not able to get the best feedback because you're not giving them all the details, and so that person can only give you advice on what you share with them. So basically, you're saying that, they should have a mentor. We all know you need to have a good goal setting skills, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And that's pretty much about it, really. So, yeah, is that pretty much what would you say in a nutshell?
Yeah, I think this is a subject that could go on for days and weeks. And, like if people are in a position where they feel like the walls are caving in and, there's no hope, you need to understand that there's an outcome that can be formulated if you just reach out and ask for help. And I think if people knew that and understood that, there'd be a lot less self-harm and a lot less drug and alcohol abuse and a lot less suicide. Because people need to know that they're not alone. And it's easy. It's easy when you are not looking after yourself, whether it be through diet, environment, stress, to get yourself in a state of anxiety that just becomes all-encompassing and you start thinking about ending it all because that's the only outcome. And I think about suicide sometimes, which this might be a very controversial thought process, is that I really feel that suicide is the body's way of stopping evolution, like cutting off the DNA chain there, which I know sounds a little bit sort of like whatever, but I feel like if you get your body into a frenzy, and certainly there's exceptions to the rule, like when people experience horrendous trauma and sustained trauma, like I'm not saying it should happen, but I think it's the body saying, okay, we've received enough damage, let's just end it here and not continue. Because they do talk about, I don't know if you've ever heard the term, Neil, intergenerational trauma. You ever heard that before?
Not really. I've heard that people that come from families that have had suicide are likely to be suicidal themselves. It's something that can be passed on to generations, but not.
Well, that's what. Yeah, intergeneration. So intergeneration. So from the previous generation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any science or any hardcore data behind it, but there seems to be some stuff there. It wouldn't shock me. So
yeah. Well, I studied a counselling course before, so I did read up a little bit about it, and it was news to me. I didn't know. I thought it was about someone and their personal experiences which drives them to suicide, but I didn't know that it could basically be passed on from generation to generation. And something that the counselling field tries to achieve or to look into when you do go see a counsellor is they ask these sort of questions because they want to know what level of risk you are, so you don't, in case you're doing self-harm and other things like that along the way. But yeah, it was pretty interesting doing a counselling course in the past because it teaches you about some of the things that people actually go through, and it's not always like people aren't weak. It's not that they're weak. It's their past experiences. So I understood what you were speaking about earlier about traumas and what sort of effect that can have on the person themselves. And that's what made it, what drew me to you to do the interview with you was basically you helping people to achieve what they want to achieve. I've done a lot of reading on Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker. There's a few other people as well, but they're the main ones that always come to my head. Awesome. And it's easy to do a lot of reading, but it's very hard to put practice into play. And I can be sometimes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I don't do it. Sometimes I do it. This doing this podcast with you today, I've been wanting to do for a while, but actually doing it now. And so it's like the way I've looked at it or what I've learned over the years is to start by just kicking little goals. Eventually there'll be big goals. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
In front of the goal and then eventually step 1 meter back from that goal and have a shot. then step back, and eventually you do, kick from 40 meters out, 50 meters out. But I know there's not a lot of people that have access to this sort of information, and that's what I wanted to basically do, is to be able to share information with the world and teach, not so much teach, but have resource for them out there, because the internet's a wonderful place these days, and there's a lot of content available. And basically, that's pretty much about it. I just want to be able to share with everyone, and I do appreciate you. Yep.
It's really good, Neil, and the more people know about the stuff, the better, in my opinion. I've got the website, labanditchburn.com, for anyone that wants to know more about my background and wants to explore anything. Laban's Laban, and Ditchburn as in digger, ditch, and burn, one word. I can't think of another analogy. If you can think of one, let me know. And keep an eye out for me.
Are you on Twitter or Facebook?
Facebook, Twitter, at Laban Ditchburn, and same with Facebook as well. There's only one on the planet that I can find, and it's me.
Okay, no, you do have an interesting name, I'll tell you that for sure. When I wrote it down the first time, or when I looked you up, I was like, is this the right person that I was looking for? Ditch and burn, Ditchburn. I was like, you got a pretty cool. You have one of the coolest surnames, I have to say.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
You can thank my. It's from the Battle of the Bannockburn in Scotland, many years ago. So proud Scottish roots.
So you know a bit about your surname and where it came from?
Not crazy, man. There's a place called Ditchburn just north of the English border in Scotland, but it's from the Battle of the Bannockburn, which was a famous battle in the UK many years ago. So apart from that, I don't know. I've got a red beard when it grows out. I'm pretty sure I got Viking blood, so it explains my love of meat. So I don't know.
Please tell me you got a picture of yourself next to the sign of the town, do you?
I have not been there, even though I lived in the UK. I never actually made it across the border of Scotland. I'm planning on making a trip. I'll go there next time.
You know what? When you do that next time,
it's not going to be a major tourist stop off.
Look, next time you do, you get your name right, Laban, on a card, and then hold it next to the city sign, and take a photo with it for me. Can you?
We'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that for both of us.
Look, I'll wrap it up for now, for today. And basically, thank you very much for your time. And to everyone else watching, be sure to hit subscribe on the button down below there, and hit the bell to hear about the notifications about more shows to come out soon. And also, if you really enjoy what you see, and would like to participate or to join the cause in supporting my channel, the link for the Patreon account is down below. But from now, thank you very much, and have a good evening.